When I come across someone who has a new or existing podcast that needs to be managed, they give us the videos, the recordings, and then we go and make the SEO show notes, reels, graphics, clips, put it out on social
Yep.
media. And it just took this whole journey of number one, figuring out what I was good at, and then number two, finding the confidence to say, well, I've got the skill, but there's also the kind of additional territory that I have to embrace, like the people skills. And then number three, have the trust to delegate the other tasks so that way I can more focus on my zone of genius. So I would say there's those three sparks in play.
Driven by purpose, fueled by passion. My words got power, my thoughts have action. Motivation, stay gracious. That's greatness. Be audacious. Motivation. Be audacious. Innovation. Be audacious. Inspiration. Be bold. Motivation. Be audacious.
Greetings and salutations. Welcome to the Audacious Living Podcast, where our ongoing mission is to help you live your best audacious life ever. I'm totally thrilled to have you here with us, taking time to invest in your growth and development. You know, each episode is designed to spark insight, fuel courage, and equip you with the tools to shape your life with bold intention. Now, I want you to think of this podcast as a forge where ideas, experiences, and courage meet the fire of transformation. Like a blacksmith shaping raw metal into something strong and lasting, we'll explore how delegation, mindset, connection, and learning can help you craft a life that endures. So grab your hammer, light your fire, and get ready because it's time to forge your audacious life. Today, I'm thrilled and totally excited to have our guest, Robert Plank. He's a seasoned entrepreneur and host of the Marketer of the Day podcast, where he's interviewed over 1,400 business leaders. His mission is to empower others to unlock their potential through creativity, connection, and consistent action. Robert's insights on delegation, mindset, and meaningful growth will help you take bolder steps in your journey. So without any further ado, let's dive into our conversation with Robert. Enjoy. Hey, Robert, thank you for joining me here today on the Audacious Living Podcast. I appreciate you for taking the time to be here. Thank you.
I appreciate you too. Happy to be here, Mr. Audley.
Yeah, no, it's great. I oftentimes talk about just the opportunity to sort of engage in dialogue and that potential. Like, so the way I view it is like, you and I have an opportunity, Robert, to chat, and individuals potentially can eavesdrop into our conversation and take something that they can use in their own lives to get them to a better place. And so that part's just really, really exciting. And I can't wait to dig in with you. Here on this podcast, we spend much time encouraging individuals to live that best audacious life. And the cool and kind of analogy that's oftentimes referred to is life being kind of like on a journey or a pathway. And on your pathway, you've got your distinct set of obstacles, challenges, pitfalls, what have you. And it's our journey to keep making that step forward, to go over and pass and through them, because on the other side of those challenges, where the greatness lies, the adversity, on the other side of adversity is where all the greatness and rewards lie. And so I think it's really important that we take that step, that audacious step forward. I'd love maybe for an opportunity for you to introduce yourself to our audience, let them know about the work that you do and what's gotten you to the point that you're at now.
Happy to. My name's Robert Plank. My website is dfypodcast.com, and my podcast is called Marketer of the Day. I've interviewed over 1,400 entrepreneurs and business owners about their strategy, their philosophy, and how they found confidence. And much like you, Audrey, or oddly, you can't find the confidence naturally, right? It's not usually built in. You have to dig for it and find it and use it. And life is never easy every single day, and you have to overcome things. And I've had to overcome the shyness, the being an introvert, the being maybe like passed over, or like dealing with bullies. And it's way better to do those hard things and find the discipline and take the calculated risk and pursue your dreams. And I started off as a computer programmer, and I was just kind of like just quiet and shy and just didn't get where I wanted to go in life. And 16 years ago, I became a full-time entrepreneur, and that led to doing webinars and membership sites and list building. And then it led into this thing called podcasting, where like we're doing right this instant, right? You
Right.
have amazing conversations. You go on LinkedIn, you find people, you do the publicity, you have your own show, you have guests on your shows, you appear on other shows. It's an amazing time to be alive and help people out by just having these conversations, right? You create content, you build connections, you fight against all of the AI sludge where you read something and you're like, that sounds real, I guess, but did someone put that out, or is that a robot voice versus just that real human to human connection, which it's always a struggle, right? It's a struggle with the smartphones and the social media and the
Sure.
algorithms and how do we stay human throughout all that? And the answer is and always will be these one-on-one human connections, conversations. So happy to be here and loving life, having a wonderful
Yeah.
time.
I love the approach to life, Robert, the philosophy, and it very much aligns with not only myself personally, but again, types of conversations that we have here on this podcast. I'd love to dive into the start or the spark of your entrepreneurial journey. For me, that's always the most fascinating place to begin because it really gives some insight as to, why does someone decide to get up and do this thing? Like, sometimes it's personal choice, sometimes they're pushed, sometimes they've got no the option, they've got to go forward. What was your impetus?
I think that there were like multiple moments, right? Multiple times when it was kind of launched and jumped off. Like you keep mentioning this term audacious, and audacious means showing a willingness to take surprisingly bold risks. And I love that. And I think that every few years there is some kind of a spark like that. And I think that spark number one was people in school were like, well, what do I do with my life? Like, what's my career? And the computer programming thing is just what my brain was configured to do, what I was meant to do. I was 10 years old going to a computer programming summer camp kind of thing, and I was so nervous. I was like, oh no, this computer camp, I need to know all these things. And I dug around in my dad's office and I found this old spiral bound book that said how to program in the C programming language. And it's talked about like pointers and arrays and registers and all these words I hadn't even heard before. And I was so nervous. And I took my own notebook and I just copied it by hand, word
Hmm.
for word, page by page, stayed up all night. I get to the computer camp and they say, hey, this is a mouse, this is a computer, this is a screen. So it turned out that we didn't do any programming. It was like, hey, you're a 10-year-old kid, and here's how to move the mouse cursor and click a
Right.
box. And but then somehow all of this information got stuck in me and downloaded in me, and I began just experimenting with C++ and Java and programming languages, and it was so much fun. High
Right.
school rolled around, and I took a programming class, and I blew through the whole book in a week, and it was just like I'd never come across anything like it of just the being so excited and almost falling into a trance and then
Right.
going into this really like extremely stressful period where you can't quite finish the project and then you get it through and it's this release and it was just this amazing thing and I was like I have to do this as a career, but then the problem was that if that was my career trajectory I would have a period of 5 or 10 years of that fun time and then have
Yes.
to go into like management and manage others and be a business person. And that's the only way my income would increase. And I was like, I don't want that path. But I always had so much fun just experimenting with making different kinds of software products, a link tracker, a
Yep.
pop-up tool. And then I discovered this thing called internet marketing. And they said that you can make your own websites and you can make money while you sleep. And that meant that you have a website, someone
Passive
finds
income.
Yeah, and all those things, which it does exist, but there's also a lot more baggage to it than they claim that there is. But
Sure.
there is such a thing as mailbox money, and there is like you do your active income, but then the passive income comes as part of that, and that's wonderful. And I made these things like making websites, but then you'd make these products, and no one would even know they exist. No one would buy them because you put something out on the internet, no one's just going to find it. So I needed to figure out this stuff called traffic and getting clicks, running ads. And that was all hit or miss, but then I realized really quickly that you had to partner up with people, right? You had to joint venture. And then I would partner up with people that really didn't have many skills. I
Okay.
would do all this work. I would make the product, the website, the marketing copy, and then they would just kind of like meet other people or be the face of it. And I really didn't like that. And I said, well, I got to the point where I have to step up. I have to, whether I like it or not, whether I think I'm an introvert or good enough or not, I have to get on camera and I have to promote some of this stuff and I have to talk about my own product and I do have to make my own connections. I can't just partner with someone and hope that they make the connections because eventually
Right.
they'll get lazy. I have to go out and do my own stuff and do those hard things. And so that was like spark number two is going out there and doing the webinars and the podcasts and like we're doing here. But
Right.
then it just ended up being this building another job. It ended up being just putting in all this time, all this work, and getting money. But then it was like I'm just like working my tail off. And then my son was born 5 years ago. He's super cute. He looks just like me, right? Looks like my clone. And
Love
what
it.
happened was I was kind of like he was a super tiny baby and I was
Yeah.
balancing him and it took, you know this, right? It takes like
Sure.
1 hour to give your newborn one bottle of formula and congratulations, in 2 or 3 hours you
You
get
can
to do it all
do
over
do it all
again.
over
Yeah.
again. Oh, don't forget the diaper first. Diaper changing first. Then.
Oh yeah, and the diaper changing multiple times a day, and forget if the diaper leaks and all that stuff. And so I was like, well, I can't keep doing this and then go and focus and do like the deep work. I was just like, there's no way I don't have the good old days anymore of sitting for 2 or 3 hours getting stuff done. And
Right.
so I realized like I had to have a team. I had to have people do the back end fulfillment for me. I had to be the leader. And sure, I could jump in when time permitted to do those projects, but the minutia, the day-to-day, the get these tasks done, the process these videos, send these emails, do these podcasts, like it just didn't make any sense for me to do that. And then that's kind of spark number three, where I then began delegating and actually building a real business that didn't rely on me. And that, ooh, your motion sensor turned off, like you mentioned. And then that led to what we have right now, which is called DFY Podcast, where if when I come across someone who has a new or existing podcast that needs to be managed, they give us the videos, the recordings, and then we go and make the SEO show notes, reels, graphics, clips, put it out on social
Yep.
media. And it just took this whole journey of number one, figuring out what I was good at, and then number two, finding the confidence to say, well, I've got the skill, but there's also the kind of additional territory that I have to embrace, like the people skills. And then number three, have the trust to delegate the other tasks so that way I can more focus on my zone of genius. So I would say there's those three sparks in play.
Yeah, no, and I can relate to so much of that as a podcaster myself, and just the piece around letting go, right? That's a big part of it, right? Letting go. Yes, I did this. Yes, I can do this, and this I've always done it. And yes, it is possible someone could do it just as good as you can, right? But you have to be able to let go to allow that to happen. Was that a struggle? Letting go, was that hard for you?
Of course, and it still is, right? And it's like yeah, because and it's also because like letting go doesn't mean being like completely disappearing, right? You say, well,
Right.
I've got this task to do, and someone else should do it, and I'll have them do it, and like maybe I'll check their work, and maybe I'll check their work more so now, and as they do a good job, then I'll back off a little bit later. But if they mess up or make a mistake or take too long or don't do it the way I wanted it to, don't just grab it back from them because they'll never learn. And there were some parallels from the child raising to the the delegating and the work, dealing with the workers is that
Right.
there's like, well, you have to say, you have to do the letting go, and you have to maybe manage them and check them a little bit, but many times be hands off and develop that emotional intelligence, because if you let the emotions run the ship, then you'll really hold yourself back, right? If you really let the ego get in the way and say, well, I'm the only way it can happen. Well, you're really going to hold yourself back long term. And it is frustrating and it is a little bit stressful and anxious to be like, oh no, they messed this up. And it's just something else to deal with, in the same way that your kid's going to ride a bike and fall down. Like, it is going to happen, and your employees are going to maybe get that word on the graphic wrong, or that font, and it's just something to be corrected. It's not catastrophic. You have way bigger problems to deal with, and I think that's what being an entrepreneur is all about, is seeking, searching, finding problems and go and solving that, and that leads to bigger problems. And it's just this weird, chaotic forward motion that not everyone's equipped for, but that's what we should be doing. Is find like, I know you're all about taking those calculated risks. You find problems, you get to bigger problems, and it's just you somehow manage the chaos, but it's you manage it. You don't completely control and strangle the chaos.
That's it. This is it. Maybe we use this as a bit of a learning piece for our listeners, and maybe we can identify a couple of keys to letting go effectively, or how do you let go? Because I think for a lot of people, and I'm going to even speak from my perspective, right? Like again, I connected the podcast from, just over 500 episodes, and I've, you develop your rhythms and your systems, and you obviously you have templates, that kind of stuff that you work towards, and the idea of passing that on to someone else, going, here, you take all this thing, I'll do these interviews and I'll walk away, you take care of the rest. It kind of makes me shake a little bit, go, what? Huh? What are you talking about? Right? So it's not an easy thing. So I wonder, if we can maybe identify one or two keys to being able to let go and help people like myself calm down.
Course. And I think it's like one of those issues where like there's no clear cut recipe, right? It's just like you have a toolbox and it's messy and there's all these tools piled in, and it's like you pick up whichever tool makes sense to you. So communication is important, communication with yourself and with your team, and you set those clear expectations. And unfortunately for some people, I think that means that you have to figure out a little bit of writing, right? And if you say, well, hey, I want you to edit these videos or process them, here's how I want it to get done. And if you can't articulate that yourself, then you just have them articulate it, and you say, hey, you process the video and then kind of document or write down how you did it, and I'll look at it and then I'll adjust it for you. So there's that amount of patience. But I think that you need to have the instructions in place. Someone needs to write the instructions, right? If you do, then maybe they won't perform them exactly, and you adjust that. Or maybe they'll do the work, then they'll write the instructions, you have to go back. But like, there'll definitely be that learning curve. And I think that managing your emotions, sleep is really important. But the starting point for me, as far as dealing with the emotional stuff, is just this idea that we're meant to be miserable, and it's up to us to rise above and overcome that programming, right? That in the caveman days, all that was important was that
Yep.
you live until you're 20 years old, and you reproduce, and you find food, and you kill the bear. And if you have a wife and a kid, you keep them warm and alive just long enough to get the next generation, and then you'll die of frostbite, and then the next generation will be born, and they'll just barely eke out an existence. And what that means is, if you hear a rustling in the leaves, then you run back to the cave, because if you say, hey, I'll take a calculated risk and I'll explore and see what that rustling is, the tiger eats you. So that
Right.
definitely didn't serve you in the year 20,000 BC, but in the current modern age, it's outdated programming. So we have to have this weird self-awareness of knowing that we don't like risk just by our innerness, and we have to kind of like be weird and crazy and overcome that. And then there's the surrounding of the people who surround you. I don't even know how to phrase that, right? Is that if they're not aware of this, then they'll kind of stifle your adventureness, and they'll say, well,
Mhm.
I don't want you to take a risk. And this is like friends and family looking out for you. And I'm sure that you've dealt with this oddly too. It's like sometimes people just rub off on you. And if they have this like negative attitude, or the kind of the self-defeat or the
Hmm.
pessimism, then you kind of get their voice in your head. And so there's just all these factors at play of you have to have the positivity and you have to have the communication and you
Yep.
have to maybe write stuff down and have your list and write it and rewrite it because only 3% of the population has written goals that they act on and regularly review.
Oh,
Only 3%. And
wow.
most people they drift through life, they see what happens, other people end up making choices for them, and you have
Mm,
to do these things called SMART goals. It's simple, measurable, actionable, relevant, and time bound. And
mm.
these are all just like kind of simple principles, and we've all heard them, but it's up to us to say, well, am I going to come up with reasons why it won't work for me? Or I've heard of that and give me something new, or you say, I've tried all these other ways, and maybe there's something to the positivity and the just the goal setting and the
Yep.
organization and the discipline and doing what's right, doing what I need to do and should do.
Yeah, no, no, and those are, I think those are all really key ones. I love your point around the 3% only goal set. I mean, it really speaks to how much coasting happens in life, and people just kind of moving along, and that's where if we're not for certain individuals, if they're not careful, they become the victims of their stories, right? And they go, oh well, it wasn't. It just happened to me, and oh my gosh, I had no control. And there's always a point where we did have control of something before we lost control, right? I always talk about like, what was that last point of control that you had, that last decision point that you made before you had no control of it. And there always is something. And so, I resonate that. I appreciate it muchly. You talk about boundaries a lot with entrepreneurs, and I'd love to sort of dive into that one because work life balance is key in all of this, right? And being having those boundaries to establish or have in place are very very important. What are kind of some of the challenges for I guess for entrepreneurs? That's what you're focused on, entrepreneurs, and for them to establish clear boundaries that don't impact their lives negatively.
I think time is a huge boundary, isn't it? Because you think that, and it's going back to the myths you believe as an entrepreneur before you go in, right? Passive income and work in your pajamas and make money while you sleep,
Right.
but you still need to run a business. And if you say, well, I'll just kind of wing it and I'll play around, then you'll get winging it and playing around results. And unfortunately, at some point, you do have to grow up, right? You do have to pay your taxes and do your accounting and look at those transactions because they're on the flip side of things, right? There's what we said that your brain's meant to be miserable, but also you're not supposed to be happy 100% of the time, right? If you were got strapped down in a hospital bed and they put an IV in you and they just pump morphine into you for the rest of your life, I guess you'd be happy 100% of the time, but that would be not in existence. And as adults, there's definitely a ratio of there's that percentage of time when we have to do the things that we don't want to do, like go and wave our hands and get the lights turned back on, right? And sometimes you have to do the writing or do the math or crunch the numbers, and the goal is to get to the other side, right? And
Right.
of
Right.
course, you don't want to be 100% miserable, but you say, there's all these things that I know that I have to do to survive, right? To help out my
Right.
family, to be an adult. And the goal there is to get my house paid off, to build a business, to then at a later date reduce my hours, to have some kind of a strategic plan. And there's just, especially us Americans, right? We're so famous for the short-term gain and sacrifice the future, right? If you spend your money now and you get into debt now, or you don't save for the future, well, that's great in the present, but not great later on. So there's like
Right.
a delayed gratification
Gratification.
aspect of it, and having the discipline and just like finding a way to enjoy it, because I think that a real trap is waiting for motivation and then taking action, saying, okay, well, I need to make that landing page. I need to record this podcast. I'll wait till I'm in the mood for it. Well, that might take 2 weeks, and you might get all these distractions, and you
Yep.
might never get there. And having done over 500 podcasts, many times you show up to a meeting of some kind or start a task, and you're just like, I'm not really feeling it, but I'm doing it. I'm not
Right.
making excuses, not telling a story. I'll just go ahead and do it. And like 5 or 10 minutes in, then you get excited about it, right? It's like you go for a run and it's cold and you're miserable and you're like, well, I need to go for a run, but if I don't go today, then I might not go tomorrow and the next week. Next thing I know, I'm not doing it. So you put on your
Right.
clothes and you're going for a run and you turn the corner, you're like, okay, well, I'm actually like enjoying this a little bit. And many times the enjoyment comes midway, and it's such a trap to wait for to be enjoying something that you're not even doing yet. It's crazy when you think about
Right.
it like that. So I think that
Yeah.
you discipline is more reliable and more important than motivation. And if you really are like burned out in the way that people say, then it is time to re-examine your long-term goals. And I think that when I've been burned out, or when I've found someone that felt that way, it was because they didn't think further ahead than 6 months into the future. So you think like, okay, what do I want in 5 or 10 years? And then
Hmm.
working back from that, then like what are the links in the chain? And then okay, well, I might have to go through the rough period, but that's just part of the journey. And seeing the big
Right.
picture, hey, now I'm excited about it because I've zoomed out enough.
You know, I love your point around, discipline, and you're right, that will take you further than you ever realize. I just, so at the time of this recording here, the passing of Hulk Hogan that was occurred this past week, and so obviously you get online, you're seeing all these interviews and pictures and whatever, and I actually watched a video of him talking about going to the gym and working out. And he said he said I learned this from Arnold Schwarzenegger. There's some days you get up and you just don't want to go. And he talked about going anyways and go lift light weights. Like don't lift the heavy stuff. Just do a light. But the fact that you just got to be there and be disciplined enough just to get there. And eventually, you'll sort of get into that rhythm. And even if you don't, that's okay too, because you're still there. And so I think of I just literally saw it a couple of days ago. I think of that as you talk about the importance of discipline. It's to create this thing that you do and make it part of you and be consistent with it is what I took away from that.
Yeah, have a mission, have a purpose, and the enjoyment is part of it. And it's also great, as you're mentioning here, to just feed your brain good stuff, right?
Yeah.
Because it again, you don't have a plan, you let whatever comes at you seep in. What's going to seep in? Social media, news, the doom and
Yeah.
gloom, and it gets caught in such an anxiety cycle, right? There's a war here, there's a famine there, there's an explosion there, because the news is meant to get our attention. But every day it's like this thing, this is all the most important stuff versus like being like, okay, well, there's also room for some motivation and to be listening to my heroes. And I like Arnold Schwarzenegger too. Like he says the thing about like if you're lifting the weight and you're doing the reps, like say like the first six are easy, and then 7, 8, 9, 10, that's when it like hurts. You don't want to do it, but that's when the
Right.
muscle's actually growing. So if you just went for 6 reps and you said, "Oh, well, now it's getting hard, I'll stop," like you won't do anything. The progress
Right.
is in where it hurts a little bit. So like, yeah, all these guys, they have wonderful things to say, and you need to be reading and watching the YouTube videos, not so much the TikToks, because that'll mess with your attention span, but you need to be
Yeah.
kind of a curious learner. And something else, I mean, we're talking statistics. I saw something else, and I might be totally off on the rounding here, but it was like 40% of high school graduates never read a book again in their life. And that's scary, and I believe it.
Oh,
And
oh.
in this day and age with AI and things changing and people's careers being upended and all the technology, like that's completely crazy. You need to be learning all the time, and learning has different forms, like listening to a podcast like this one or finding out what Hulk Hogan's secrets to life are.
Right. There you go. No, you're right. And I'm actually, with the advent of AI, I'm surprised that number. I wouldn't be surprised if it's higher, that 40% number, because it just makes it easy. And, and for those that aren't interested. There are those that weren't interested in reading in high school. So it's now they get out, they're like, I'm done now, right? Like, so it's just funny when you think about that. You work with a lot of entrepreneurs, right? Like to help them figure out sort of kind of get how they get on that sort of path of success. And I know success is individually defined by each of us. What's my success is very different from yours. I'm wondering, do you have a story or example of someone that you helped kind of increase their success, or at least get them to a place where they want it to be?
Yeah, I mean, there's a few. One guy that comes to mind is one of my favorite people. His name is Jonathan Crutchfield, and from Tupelo, Mississippi, and he's currently in Mansfield, Texas. And
Okay.
he's a former school principal at Old Miss, and he's a real estate investor.
Okay.
And he's one of these guys where he was looking to attract clients, and he does all this real estate. I can't even keep track of all the crazy stuff he does. He'll buy a whole block in some little town in Mississippi. He'll like buy a hotel. He'll buy 100 units. He does all this like super leveraged stuff, but he misses the teaching and the school principal stuff. So then
Okay.
he's the reason why I even have my podcast service, because I was just kind of doing it on a little basis here and there. I was like, hey, if you need 5 podcast episodes, 3 podcast episodes, and then he came to me and he kept cranking out the content because he was looking around and he was like, well, what do I need to do to be successful and get noticed? It's to be prolific, right? I can't him and haw and spend a year making 5 little videos. It's like you, oddly, right? 500 episodes. You have to do a lot of numbers. And I was just really impressed how he was putting stuff out every week. And he said, well, can I just pay you a flat monthly fee and just add any number of podcast episodes I have, you just do them. And at first I was just like, oh my gosh, like, is this guy trying to scam me? Is he wanting me to agree to it? And then he'll be like, hey, here's 87 episodes. But then luckily he still only just had the weekly episodes. And I was like, huh, there is something to that business model of saying like, hey, I want to make it simple for you. And other people will
Right.
nickel and dime you, but here's just like a flat amount. And so we've grown his YouTube channel to I think 15,000 subscribers last time I checked, and hundreds of videos. And we built up his social media presence, and we've got him led to some deals, some like $5,000 and $7,000 coaching deals. And it happened because he had something that was working for him, right? He was
Right.
making money. He had a business. He was doing real estate investing, but he was like, it's not enough. There's a cap on my growth here. And a way to uncap that is to become more of an influencer, even though that's what all the kids want to be these days. But there's a reason for that, isn't it? Because
Mm,
again, there's the dream sold to you of entrepreneurship, and there's the dream sold to you of being an influencer, and the dream
yeah.
there is that, well, let's say you're like Kanye West and you have millions of Instagram followers. If you're an influencer, you can just roll up to some restaurant and you can say, hey, give me a free meal. And they'll give it to you for free because they'll make $20,000 just from the publicity that you send to the
Sure.
restaurant. That's the dream. But then you kind of dial that back from the ridiculousness, the over the topness of it, and you say, okay, well, what they're really going for is that if you have your own traffic, your own audience, your own social media presence, then you won't have to hunt. You can still hunt for people, but other people will hunt for you as well. And other
Yes.
people will find you. And if someone has a problem, like they need coaching with their business, or they need a website build or something like that, then they will find you. And that's a way better conversation to have, right? And when it comes to acquiring customers, clients, if you're like always kind of sweating the next deal, that's not good. But if you have a meeting and you're
Hmm.
like, hey, here's what I do, and you get excited with each other about the possibilities, like, hey, that's a way better way of going about it. And so that's
Yeah.
I really enjoyed for the past 5 years seeing Mr. Jonathan Crutchfield's growth. And I mean, he's started like putting out courses and like building all like running ads and doing, and like it always leads to more things,
Sure.
because you can't just, if you want to go places in life, you can't just be this one singular job title. You have to be larger than life, you have to be audacious, and you have to put out the content regularly, consistently, and you have to maybe try to have that effect that maybe a radio DJ or a talk show host has. You know how like we've all had that where like you have like a Jay Leno or a David Letterman or someone like or someone on the radio, and you listen to them for years, and
Yep.
and you're like, oh, that's my buddy, and they don't even know you exist. But it's just, and like who knows how many like millions of people maybe say like Dave Ramsey has affected, where like people feel like they're his buddy, and so you
Right.
can change lives. You can teach people, you can make them feel better, and then if it does come time to have that sort of like, business relationship, then they're already pre-warmed up to you because they
Totally.
know years worth of information about you just because you've been honest and open and put out the content.
Mm-hmm. No, you're absolutely right. I mean, content is king, right? And that's what we know that to be. And the internet world is always hungry. There's never enough content. There's always more. And so you can put all the effort, time to create this piece of content you feel really proud about, and as soon as you put it out there, your people are going, okay, what's next? What else you got for us, right? And so
Oh, yeah.
and so to always be in that frame of thinking, that mind, it's a lot. And so hearing what you can provide in terms of a service for people, helping people navigate and save time, I think is huge. So kudos to that. What kind of things have you learned on your sort of own personal journey as you were, or maybe your entrepreneurial journey personally, that you, as time has gone on? And so you sort of talked about, that one example that you're helping, this particular individual, and that sounds like a great learning. I'm wondering if are there other sorts of things that you learned along your journey as you were evolving your own self?
I've learned that people are really important, even though it seems really tame and cheesy. Like, you think back to Mr. Rogers and just how nice of a guy he was, and that's something to aspire to. There's enough negativity in the world, and what we need more of is to be an encouraging person. And a lot of people, they have these dreams, they want to make a business, they have these goals, and they're even afraid to share them. It's kind of like you think of, say, there's like a shy kid, and he's like really quiet, doesn't talk. And then when he does talk, then everyone kind of like points it out and laughs about it and draws attention to it. And then what happens? You draw back into the shell. And so if someone out there is taking a risk and they're building a business, if they're putting out an app or a coaching program or a book and you see that happening and someone's telling you about it, like listen, right? And don't try to add your own one-upsmanship, right? Don't try to like stop them halfway and give them your ideas or tell them why it won't work. Like be an encouraging person because there needs to be more of that. And especially in that letting go aspect you mentioned before, right? It's not your job to control other people, tell them how to act, solve their problems. If someone out there is taking a risk on a business, see what you can do to help them, to support them in your journey. And especially you and I, oddly, us fellow podcasters, the go-to is if you don't even know really how to support someone on their journey, well, you have them on the podcast, right? Because
Mhm.
that way it helps them to articulate what they're all about, and it becomes an asset that lives on YouTube and on the podcast platforms forever. So it's like if you come across that friend that really is going places, that has a goal, has a dream, and they're on their way up, then get them on your podcast. So I think that the
Yeah,
peopling is really important, even though it's very much delayed gratification. It's so even what we're doing right now, right? It's so
sure.
silly. We're a couple of
Yeah,
guys. We met over, I think, like a cold email or something, and then here we are, both looking at computer screens and cameras, but then it all somehow kind of works. So even though
right.
it is silly and it is awkward too, if someone is new to podcasting, entrepreneurship, and all the networking stuff, it's so weird, right? Just to talk to someone, and you have to make sure to like be super kind of like have your face look happy and be like smiling and nodding. It's so weird.
Right.
But again, you look at what the end goal is, you look at what's on the other side. So the peopling is more important than anything. The people that you become friends with, referral partners, joint venture partners, your customers, right? You think about you mentioned about, you spend so much time on a video. Well, you can put out a video that you think is great, but your audience doesn't even like it. And then you put out some video that you think like this is way too simple. There's not much to it, and then it
Yeah.
blows up. And I've put out like software products and courses and things that I thought were great, complete flop, and then put out software that I thought, who's going to want this? And then total success. So
Yeah.
it's about the people, and it's so easy to forget that with the AI and with the business building and saying, I've got these products, all these things I'm doing, but who are the people that you're going to help?
And I think that really speaks to the importance of you just keep going, right? So yeah, you made something didn't work. You don't curl up in a ball and go, oh well, what was me? And that's the end of the world. It's like okay, it's keep going, and maybe from that there's a lesson that you could take up and learn and figure out how to do something better, differently, or faster next time, or whatever that teaches you. But the core of that is to keep persevering. So off the top, I talked about us being our own individual pathway, right? So we're on that pathway, and there's going to be the obstacles and pitfalls, and the products that you make or the videos that you create that don't land with people. What do? You keep persevering, keep pushing ahead, and that's the resiliency piece that the underlying and all that.
100%. Keep going. 10 years ago, I got into online dating. I was between relationships and I was so frustrated because, I mean, any kind of dating, there's rejection, but online dating, there's like hundreds, thousands, right? You send
Yeah,
messages or you talk and then they close it. And then I got educated. I read articles about it and they said, well, even though it is frustrating, you just need one at the end. You just need to get to the end of that. And then when I got married and my business was on the way up, and I found some mentor that she used to do like knocking on doors, like door-to-door salesperson. I'm like, man, talk about rejection. And I loved hearing her stories. So I went and read some books about people that did like the door-to-door selling, and they said like get through all the no's to get to the yeses. And now I do a
sure.
lot of prospecting on LinkedIn, and sometimes I'll have to message like 1,000 people just to get maybe like 20 or 30 to talk to me, just to get maybe three or four, could be just to get like maybe one, but it might even not be one. I might have to like do a little bit more messaging to get to the one. And it's like there's so many people out there that they don't set their expectations low enough, right? They have these huge
Right.
expectations. They think, okay, well, I'll just send like three messages a day, and that'll give me like one sale a day. It's like, no, you might have to send thousands, and you might feel like giving up all the time, but you're just trying to get to one, right? You just want to get to the end of that. And we've all been in situations where we look back at all the work it took to get to something, and you said, if I had been able to see the future, if I knew how much work was involved, I wouldn't have done it. And so maybe that's a little bit of a blessing in disguise, that we can't see the future, that we do see only get one day at a time, but it's just like it's in pursuit of what your next milestone is.
Yeah, no, I love that, and the perseverance, and again, keep going, keep going, keep going. Um, Listen, Robert, I mean, I've really appreciated the insights, and I love the journey. Again, as a fellow podcast, I can certainly relate so many ways. Let's be clear, you've got like over 1,000 episodes, so you really
1,400.
1,400. Congratulations. I mean, that's a big deal. And the idea, and I say that because I know what's involved. I'm a podcaster myself, and I know what I know what it took for me to get to 500. So for you to be at 1,400, congratulations. That is a big deal. It's something not to be taken lightly. Yeah. As you wrap up here, I'm just wondering, is there a bold piece of advice that you have for listeners, or even entrepreneurs out there, who kind of wanna live more audaciously and be and take more risks and take chances, but they're maybe a little hesitant. It's something he suggests, or something you can recommend that they think about doing.
I think that I hope it's audacious enough. I think you need to write it down. I think that I'm a big believer in something I invented years ago called four daily tasks, which means that every day you figure out what the four most important things are and you do it. And there is an amount, and it is something you have to do every day, in order to get the right sizeness figured out, because you see people that say, okay, well, here's my to-do list. It's 60 things and it's 60 easy things. Or they say, oh, here's like one or two things, and they only chip away at it and they don't really get it done. And so it's quite a mind struggle to not psych yourself out in that way. And I think that it's important to show up every day. And I think that not everyone likes to hear that. But as soon as I started doing it, including weekends, and even if you can only do like 5 minutes on a Saturday or 15 minutes on a Sunday, like say your weekends are light, or your weekends are just like pen and paper and figure out some plans, I think you need to train your brain to be thinking about your business and about your mission like every single day. Don't take weekends off. And what's also great about being an entrepreneur is you have time freedom, right? Which means that if other people are maybe taking some holidays off, like let's say like Labor Day, right? Maybe you go to the lake with your family or something, but let's say if you didn't really have plans that day, there's some holidays where you can like work the holidays or work the weekends, and then during the week or during some other time when other people are working, then you can take that day off. And so there's definitely value in just like thinking about how you can like rejuggle, remanage your time, but all of that, it's almost impossible without writing it down or writing down your 4 daily tasks and just like brainstorm what the future would look like. So many people are afraid to do it. Like they say all these things like, well, write like what you want in 5 years and 10 years. Well, actually write it down and figure it out. And when I find myself struggling to even get something done, I just write out what I'm about to do for the next 10 minutes. It's so simple, but then I like write it out, do it for 10 minutes, and then cross it off. And so I think for me, it all comes back to writing it down, because your brain plays tricks on you, right? You
Yep.
think something and you think you remembered it and you think you saw a yellow car, but it really was a green car, versus if you took a photo of, like we've all found like a photo of us as a kid, or found like an old homework assignment from the second grade, and you're like, you read it and you like experience it for the first time again. It's like because you thought you remembered it, but you didn't. So write it down. It's so important. And something else I want to squeeze in here, oddly, is
Hmm.
if you ever write a book, it should be
Yeah.
called Keep Going, Keep Going, Keep Going. Because I love that phrase that you said.
We'll keep that in mind. I'm sorry. I'm going through the book writing process now, and I've got my framework, and one of the chapters alludes to that. But I think I like that as a chapter title too. Keep going, keep going, keep going.
You're welcome. You can steal it if you want to.
Awesome, awesome. For listeners, Robert, that want to learn more, connect with you directly, learn more about your work, or even check out your 1400 episode podcast. Where can we send them?
Marketeroftheday.com is that 1400 episode podcast, and we'd love to have you on soon. I'm all about the podcast swap, and afterwards we can, in both of our respective show notes, link to each other's
Sure.
shows, and then that way we'll have content to have posted about each other. It's an amazing relationship to build. That podcast is marketeroftheday.com, and if you're someone that wants to have your own podcast, but it sounds like a lot of work, then my service for that is dfypodcast.com for a new or an existing podcast. The inputs are you send us your videos. You do your Zoom meetings, such as how me and Mr. Audley are having a blast here. And then you send us that, and we cut up and create the reels, the graphics, the SEOs, the show notes. We post it on the TikTok, the Instagram, the LinkedIn, the X, the Facebook. We get it all out there, because you've seen two types of people on social media, haven't you? You go on someone's, say, on their LinkedIn, and the last post was 8 months ago, and you're like, are they really in business? Do they really take it seriously? And
Are they live? Yeah.
the other extreme is you go and you see that their last post was 3 hours ago. And then you think, well, then how do they even have time to run a business? Because they're always posting on social media. So if you want to be in that second category, if you want to be someone where someone's like, how does Audley Stevenson get it all done? How's he post? Like, it doesn't matter which platform I look at. He's posting like a few times a day. Well, it's because they have a team, and you should too. And it's dfypodcast.com. And this way, you don't lose your humanity. It can really
Mm.
be you with on video. It can really be you, because we take the words out and run it lightly through AI, and then it's what you would have said on X or on Facebook, and it's still your words, your ideas, but the origin and the source is you. So podcasting is amazing because it's the genesis of all of your content. So if you're looking to attract people and have them kind of fall in love with you from a distance, it's great. And then if you're also kind of looking for people, right? Looking for sales, looking for clients, don't just blast the internet and say, buy my stuff. Use podcasting as a networking tool to find referral partners, referral sources that go both ways, right? If Audley has someone that needs podcasting, if I have someone that needs him, then we can send each other his way. And that's the way that relationships are built and business is done. It's with podcasting, it's content and it's relationships. And we can and will help you at dfypodcast.com.
We will make sure, like you said, that all those details are in the show notes. Robert, this has been awesome. I really appreciate the insights and the time spent, and certainly congratulations on the journey and the work. And I think you're offering a wonderful service to entrepreneurs, and I hope many as possible jump on that and take advantage of the work you're doing, my friend. Thank you for being here. This has been awesome.
You're awesome. Thank you for your show. You're an inspiration. Here's the 500 more.
I love it. Back, we are here on the podcast, and thank you for joining us on this enlightening session with Robert. It was one of the many great takers, I should say. I certainly loved hearing his insights and opinions. One of the things I really enjoyed from the conversation was his emphasis on embracing an audacious mindset. Robert reminded us that much like a blacksmith facing the fire, true growth requires both courage and consistency, the willingness to step into discomfort and shape something extraordinary from raw potential. What I personally loved about this interview was Robert's genuine passion for helping others build and refine their entrepreneurial journeys. His ability to simplify complex ideas and make them actionable is a skill every creator, dreamer, and leader can learn from. I encourage you to connect with Robert directly. You can find all his contact details in the show notes below as always, and I highly recommend you checking out his work and as well the Market of the Day podcast for even more delightful insights that can help you on your journey. Now, as we close out this episode, let's kind of go back to that blacksmith's forge. Living your most audacious life means stepping willingly into the heart of transformation. Delegation helps you focus on the pieces that truly matter. An audacious mindset strengthens your resolve. Genuine connections keep your fire burning, and continuous learning ensures that you never lose your edge. Remember, every spark, every challenge, and every strike of effort is shaping you into something stronger. So keep showing up, keep refining, and keep forging your best audacious life. Thanks for tuning in for this edition of the Audacious Living Podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, please take a moment to follow, subscribe, and share with others who might benefit from our discussions. Together, we can continue to build this community and inspire more individuals to live boldly. Until next time, stay fired up, keep your hammer in hand, and keep forging with audacity and purpose.
Driven by purpose, fueled by passion. My words got power, my thoughts have action. Motivation, stay gracious. That's greatness. Be audacious.